We've seen countless immigration raids at Southern California Home Depots, and immigrant groups are accusing the company of being complicit in the operation.
And CBS LA's Lori Perez live outside the Monrovia Home Depot with an ICE protest and a message that we haven't seen before. Lori?
That's right. You know, we have seen a lot of different protests over the last few months centered on the ICE raids, but none quite like the one that happened this weekend at this Monrovia Home Depot. One by one, hundreds picked up a 17-cent ice scraper at the Monrovia Home Depot Saturday, bought it, and then got back in long lines to return it, clogging customer service, shopping as a political act to tell Home Depot to keep ICE agents out of their stores.
Definitely. Yeah, we wanna scrape ice from our communities. And it's kind of symbolic, right, to use an ice scraper, buy it, and try to collapse their system for a moment or for some time with the group of people that are witnessing and are willing to to stand up for the human rights of day laborers.
Palmira Figueroa is communications director for the National Day Laborers Organizing Network that organized the act of consumer activism. For nearly an hour, the so-called buy-in stalled the store from operating as normal. And when the crowd started marching through the aisles, Home Depot closed the store down, a move not lost on activists.
You actually can shut a store. Right? You can shut it for this, but you have not shut them when an ICE raid and abuse is happening.
We could not reach Home Depot for comment tonight, but its communication team has repeatedly told the media they do not cooperate with ICE agents and are not notified of raids beforehand. Still, the stores are often the site of immigration actions aimed at day laborers who famously line up around the stores to offer their services. This was a more traditional protest in August after ICE agents flooded the Monrovia Home Depot parking lot, handcuffing workers waiting for jobs. One laborer who ran from the raid was struck and killed by an SUV, though DHS told us agents were not pursuing him. Figueroa and company don't buy it and don't plan on letting Home Depot off the hook.
We want for Home Depot to condemn these ICE raids on their property. We know they can do that. They should speak out, reject the use of its stores and their sites for fear and violence.
Now, videos of this weekend's unusual, unique protest have gone viral. The group says it could do it again as it looks for creative, impactful ways to protest. We are live in Monrovia. I'm Lori Perez, CBS LA.
Lori, thank you.
To all units, proceed to your post assignments. All units, proceed to your post assignments.
That's the sound of the police. Whoop, whoop. That's the sound of the beast.
Yeah, baby, it's episode 8 of Probable Cause on November 25th, 2025, 2 nights prior to Thanksgiving. So let's call this our Thanksgiving show. Greg Dillon and Jeff Norman with you as always. And tonight, making an encore return appearance on Probable Cause, former federal prosecutor George Ferko. Good evening to you both. Happy holidays.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Thank you, Jeff.
Well, Home Depot, you know, they're not the only store being targeted. Let's see if I can find the other ones here. They're calling this campaign called We Ain't Buying It, apparently from the Crockett School of Grammar, Jazzy Crockett, that is. They're also targeting Target, pardon the redundancy, Amazon and Home Depot. And they calling for a boycott November 27th through, I think, December 1st. But the one I wanted to zero in on, because it brings up what I think is an interesting legal question, something I'm very curious about, is the Home Depot situation. The activists, the protesters, don't like that ICE is enforcing the law on the property of Home Depot. And I don't know if you can read it exactly. Let me see if I can. The print's a little bit small, but basically each of the store's sins is listed under the logo and the X going through it. And Home Depot's sins something to the effect of they are allowing ICE to do this. And I think the question that we should all be asking, and I haven't heard anybody ask it yet, including all these news reports, is how exactly could Home Depot disallow it? My assumption is that ICE doesn't need Home Depot's permission to show up at their parking lot and enforce the law. What say you, George Ferko?
I think they could just tell them not to come. Wouldn't that be just a trespass? Isn't that just normal trespass law? Now, the counterpoint to that is I imagine ICE could get search warrants. I would think that there's probable cause for that. I don't know. What do you think, Greg?
I mean, it is a fairly public setting. And, you know, if someone is in a wanted status, that is certainly not providing them any level of protection, no more so than being in a school or a church, actually. I mean, the optics are bad for a school and a church, but they're pretty innocent for a parking lot of a store. But I'm surprised that maybe Home Depot doesn't take the position that anytime day workers start to assemble on their property, they call the police and ask them to be removed for trespassing. And that way you won't have any problems with ICE showing up.
Well, I would assume that Home Depot wants them to show up because that's their day workers supply.
I get it, but I think Home Depot could get in front of this problem by saying, if you're going to have protests to shut down the store, well, then we'll take the initiative and we will just have them trespassed if they show up.
Gotcha.
Here's the statement they released. It's a little bit vague, especially that last sentence. We aren't notified that immigration enforcement activities are going to happen, and we aren't involved in the operations. We aren't coordinating with ICE or Border Patrol. And here's the last sentence, which I think kind of hints at what I'm addressing. We're required to follow all federal and local rules and regulations in every market where we operate. I don't know what the hell that means, but so you're surprising me, George. I thought you would say that they don't need the permission; they can show up. I mean, otherwise, Home Depot and all sorts of shopping center parking lots could be sanctuaries for anybody avoiding arrest. Only arrests with warrants. No warrantless arrest could be made in these places open to the public.
Well, I guess I'm thinking just normal trespass law. If I go into Home Depot and they say, George, you have to leave, I have to leave. I don't know why they can't do that with federal agents. Is there some sort of an exception I'm missing?
George, I'm sorry, Jeff. Wouldn't they not have to give some sort of a reason to ask you to leave if you were being disruptive or? I
don't see it that way. I think any reason whatsoever.
No. Well, here's what I'm envisioning. Look at it this way. I can't say for sure this is what's going on, but this is my assumption. Nobody at Home Depot is going to know when ICE is going to show up. They're going to be watching in whatever way they watch, whatever way they conduct surveillance to see when there are some workers there. And as soon as they see some workers there, they come in and do whatever they do with the workers. How are you going to say, oh, you're trespassing while they're in the middle of arresting the workers?
That is a good point. And another one related to it is it could be the trespass law might be specific to the person. George Ferko, you cannot go to Home Depot. Jeff Norman, you cannot go to Home Depot. Just saying ICE cannot go to Home Depot is something else entirely. It's supposed to put people on notice of what they cannot do. And just saying ICE cannot do it as opposed to, Greg Dillon or Jeff Norman is a little different.
That's right. It's open to the public. So to say that law enforcement agents have less rights than the average person doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
All Jews must stay out of the shopping center.
That gets you into civil rights laws.
Well, yeah, right. Okay, they didn't mention cops when the Civil Rights Act was passed, right?
It just seems to be a real reach to expect them to prohibit a law enforcement agency from being on the premises.
Yeah, I just hate. I mean, it's fine if they want to take the position that ICE is enforcing the law in some way that's too heavy-handed. They're violating people's rights. Have whatever beef you want with ICE or with Trump's immigration policy, But I hate that they're annoying anybody who's innocent. And in this case, I think Home Depot is innocent. The customers are innocent, right? They did this thing where they, I can't believe the price, but it's actually sort of clever, but an ice picker or whatever you call it.
Scraper? Ice scraper,
yeah. For 17 cents, they're selling it.
That was very clever.
And then they're returning it right after they buy it. So they're annoying the people who work at the store, and they're annoying the customers in the store who just want to conduct business.
That's what actually was.
It's like, what do they have to do with immigration policy? Nothing.
Everybody's attention, please. If you're purchasing something,
I've been volunteering with.
You can come to this side.
Rosa Parks is rolling over in her grave.
Well, this is the short-sightedness of it, though, Jeff, I think. No different than when they block an intersection and people can't get to work.
Very similar.
They're getting the attention that they crave, but they're polarizing many people that might otherwise be neutral in this situation.
Home Depot. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say Home Depot, I imagine, could just say no return on ice scrapers.
Yeah, but then they might just do some other annoying thing.
Yeah, they could, you could just keep going along with checkmate every move. We're not going to take returns on this. We're not going to take returns on that. Or they could just do one line, and make them wait 3 hours before they return and get their 17 cents back.
And that's what I think is the better option, actually. Yes.
Yeah, but then they're going to get into a tit for tat thing, and these protesters will just figure out some other way. Basically, their number one priority is not to get ice scrapers. Their number one priority is to annoy Home Depot. So
Absolutely.
They'll find some other way to annoy them.
But then you'll be inconveniencing them. Not that they have jobs to go to anyway, but you'll be inconveniencing them for 2 or 3 hours.
You'll inconvenience the people who do have jobs, the customers who are showing up to buy supplies for the work they need to do. It's just ridiculous. By the way, I tried to get a couple of the protest organizers on, but for some reason they weren't eager to come on. I also invited a spokesman from Home Depot to come on. They don't want to come on either. But I don't think they've done any interviews. Home Depot, they just issued statements. But these protesters have been talking to some people, but I couldn't get them to come on.
Yeah. I just don't understand the long-term strategy of this, because it just seems to annoy and offend more people than it wins over.
Yeah, well, I think I also have a statement from one of the protest groups. We ain't buying it. That's from the Jazzy Crockett School of Grammar. We want people to take back their consumer power this weekend and not spend at Target, Home Depot, and Amazon, all who have been complicit in rolling back DEI and complying with this administration. We want consumers to realize that the power is in our hands to tell these greedy companies enough is enough. We ain't buying it. But they're asking the public to not buy things for 4 days. So the way I translate that is people will buy whatever they're going to buy before or after the 4-day period. So how is that even going to have an impact on anything?
Jeff, what was the beef with Amazon? The lettering was a little bit too small for me to make out.
I was just going to ask that. What are they going to do with Amazon?
Yeah, one of Amazon's sins is that Jeff Bezos donated money to Trump's campaign. I mean, I don't know how that warrants boycotting the business, but at least that's an answer. I should have blown it up. I think they're also bitching about how Amazon underpays its staff. Target, I think their bitch with Target is that they discontinued their DEI policy.
So it's more about DEI than it is about ICE and catching illegal immigrants.
Well, it sounds like it's a collection of grievances here between donations to Trump's campaign, DEI, and ICE. It just sounds like a mishmash of crying and whining.
Well, that paragraph at the top ties it all together, at least in their minds. This action is taking direct aim at Target for caving to this administration's biased attacks on DEI, Home Depot for allowing and colluding with ICE to kidnap our neighbors on their properties, and Amazon for funding this administration to secure their own corporate tax cuts. Colluding with Home Depot. There's absolutely no evidence presented that there's any collusion going on. What do they? I don't know. How would they collude anyway? Does ICE really need Home Depot to call them up when there's people out in the parking lot?
I'm pretty sure they were doing it independently. They just got word that a lot of the home day laborers are illegal immigrants, and voila, they show up there. When I first moved to Tucson, it was in 2004. There was a huge building boom going on, and a lot of places were going up in our area, and it was mainly Hispanic workers, except on the day when the home inspectors had to come by. Then all of a sudden, it was white workers who were doing the work.
I have a question, George, and I wish I knew the answer. Obviously, I wouldn't be asking the question if I did, but I'm trying to figure out when ICE or Department of Homeland Security, I don't want to say targets a place. I'm not using the word target, but I'm saying if they focus on a location. I am not sure if they're going there sort of like casting a net in expecting a good return, or if they are going there with a list of people that they believe are at that location, and then anybody else that happens to run is sort of a fair game. But I'm torn because I've had people ask me, are they going there just because everybody looks to be Latino, or are they going there because they have a target list of names and they suspect that many of them are there actually? Would you know that either way, or?
I do not. My assumption has been they were casting a net.
Yeah.
But it very well could be that, or a combination of both, that they have some people that they want to, that they've known from the past, tend to work at Home Depot as a day laborer. So it could be a combination of both.
Because I've heard spokespeople for ICE say, we're not just going there hoping to run across illegals. We're going there because we have a list of people that we expect to find there. And that sounds a little bit more, reasonable to me than just, showing up and expecting to walk into illegal immigrants.
Absolutely.
Well, then I think what we need from you gentlemen is to clarify the distinction between reasonable suspicion and probable cause. Probable cause means they have to have some specific evidence that specific people, one or more, doing something that's unlawful. But reasonable suspicion is a lower standard that makes it permissible for the police to stop somebody for questioning briefly. So are people who appear to be Hispanic hanging out in Home Depot, is that reasonable suspicion to?
I don't think so. It has to be reasonable and articulable suspicion, not just reasonable suspicion. I don't think it is, but I also don't think that they need it to just go there and question people about their immigration status.
All right, if they're not detaining them, they can talk to them, is what you're saying.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, George, I think it's similar to when police departments, some of the more proactive ones, used to get complaints about certain residences that they suspected were selling drugs. And as opposed to doing an extensive surveillance, they would send, 2 detectives to knock on the door. And there would be a knock and chat. And when the person opened the door, they would just engage them in conversation, hoping to be invited in, and then see something in plain sight, which would give them additional probable cause to conduct an investigation. But I mean, I think it's legal, in either scenario, actually.
But if the cops, or we call them cops when they're ICE agents, whatever the right word is, if they're playing by the rules and just questioning people, if these people in the parking lot know their rights, they're not in much danger then. they just don't answer their questions, or they lie, or they say anything they want to say, or not say anything they want to say. So I think that, it's hard to put a number on it, but I suspect ICE is violating their rights to some extent. But, like I said, the beef would be with ICE or with the Trump administration, not with Home Depot.
Well, they just want to put pressure on Home Depot to try and get them to do something to stop ICE from coming to their places of business.
Yeah, but look at the grief that Home Depot's getting already. If they started saying, don't loiter at our stores, then the local community would be up in arms even more.
Yeah, I think that's it. And Jeff, Greg talked about it before. Home Depot should just say, we're not taking any more day laborers, end it. And then, but then, of course, that screws over the day laborers. They don't have any work that they were counting on. So, Yeah. All
right. Well, we have a new feature. This is going to be the first time we do it with a guest. So get ready to have some fun. It's called Has It Happened to Greg? We look at some video of police encounters, and then we ask Greg if anything similar, doesn't have to be exact, but anything about it that might be similar, might trigger a memory, has ever happened to Greg. So let's get to it. George, you all set to have fun?
Absolutely.
All right. All right. The first one is kind of keeping in the same theme because it relates to the law at a store, which, as we discussed earlier, is not necessarily the same as if it happens in some other location. The headline was a cop's wife caught shoplifting. There's nothing in the video where you hear any reference to her husband being a cop, so I'm not sure about the headline. But anyway, let's take a look.
Officer Newman with the Louisville Police Department, just so you know, you are being detained right now. I'm going to have you come back to the loss prevention office with me right now, okay? Okay, well, we're going to figure that out. Like I said, I'm going to have you come back to the loss prevention office with me. I'm not going to handcuff you because I don't want to cuff you in front of your baby, so if you could come with me. We'll talk about this all in a second, if you could come back to the office with me. Well, you're being detained right now, so...
I have these.
Okay. Well, if you don't agree to come with me, then I'm going to put you in handcuffs. Stop.
Ma'am.
You're not free to go. I told you. You can come back to the office with me.
I know my rights.
No. I told you you're being detained. You want me to put you in handcuffs, or are you going to come?
No.
Then are you going to come to the back office with me?
Why am I being detained?
Because suspicion of theft.
You do not have a right to do that.
You're being detained right now.
Ma'am, please stop. No. Stop.
Lincoln 3, I've got one resisting.
Stop.
Ma'am, stop. Can you grab her arm?
Stop. She's my child. Stop.
And I told you I didn't want to do this.
Okay.
You decided not to listen.
Stop. My child.
Then stop.
Okay,
why are you fighting with her?
Stop.
Knock it off.
You're going in handcuffs, so stop.
I'm not going to handcuffs.
Yes, you are.
You're done. Stop.
I already gave you that option. I'm going to read you your rights, okay?
Can we please make this speedy?
No.
That's not going to be quick. You're probably going to jail.
No. You have the right to remain silent. Anything.
Sit down.
I'm done doing this with you. Sit and listen. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say, I have to read these to you, so just be quiet. You can decide at any time to exercise these rights and not answer any questions or make any statements. Do you understand each of these rights I've explained to you? Yes or no? Having these rights in mind, you wish to talk to us now.
I would like to go home. I can.
Well, that's not happening today. I tried to have you walk back to the...
My child.
Okay, well, you should have listened to me the first time rather than running away from me, telling me you didn't do anything.
You don't have any proof of anything.
And that's what I was trying to figure out. But you didn't want to talk to me.
Ashley.
What's your first name? Ashley?
Ashley.
Okay, Ashley, my partner here just read you your rights. She's asking you about the theft that got conducted inside of the store. Do you have any statements you'd like to make about
I did not
that?
complete any theft. Okay. I was literally, I had
Do you want to explain the situation that happened inside of Nordstrom's?
No.
Or anywhere else in the mall?
No.
Okay, you have no statements about any of that? You have nothing you'd like to, no comments, no statements? Do you have PC for her?
I do.
Okay, you're under arrest with theft. Understand that? You don't have to say anything else. Relax. Your child is in our custody as of right now.
No.
Yes, that's how that works when you commit crimes inside of our city. That's how that works. And so as of right now, right, we're going to make sure that he's okay, but you are being held responsible for the crimes that you've committed, and we're going to get all of that sorted out. The more difficult you make it moving forward, the longer it's going to be before we can get you back reunited with your kids. Understood?
Can we take care of this right here?
We're taking care of this.
Well, a lot happened there. I have a lot of questions. I hope I can even remember them all. But before we get into analyzing it, does any part of that trigger a memory, Greg? Maybe a shoplifting scenario, maybe dealing with somebody who was with a small child and that made it complicated. Any part of that trigger a memory?
Back in my day, depending on the level of larceny, oftentimes Caldors, when they were in existence, used to have an active security personnel on the site, and they would routinely detain shoplifters, and we would go there. But most of the time, we would write them a misdemeanor citation on the premises, as long as they had identification. Obviously, there was no outstanding warrants for them, and the larceny amount, I think, was under, I don't know, George, it might have been $250 back then, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that was more common. On occasion, we get people out of New Haven that had warrants for them. They were oftentimes drug addicts, and that was a different case. But I don't remember ever having to deal with a child in tow for those instances.
Yeah, that part of it seems excessive. I mean, what's the need? I mean, in general, this question is for both of you. In general, what is the reason to take somebody in and when they arrest them rather than whatever it's called, cite them out or something and deal with it later? What's the criteria in general?
I mean, it would be the level of larceny, you know, the dollar amount of the merchandise that was stolen. If she was going from store to store, or she targeted Nordstrom's, you know, she very could have likely gone over the threshold amount, and that which would trigger possibly, you know, going to the station as opposed to getting written up a citation on the scene.
Well, they also tried to get her to cooperate and come with them to the security area, and she refused to do that. So at that point, I'm not sure they really had much of a choice.
Well, if you're going to charge her with interfering or resisting, then that's going to be a custodial arrest.
Well, but the thing is, we can only guess, and I'm going to ask you guys, what is your guess? We can only guess who confronted them at first, because that person is not on camera. Is that a security guard or a cop?
Had to be a security guard. I imagine cops aren't generally there. And then they called police.
That would be my assumption too. So, I mean, is it against the law to resist a security guard? That's not the same thing as resisting a cop, right?
No, I agree.
And also, they didn't, when they said what she's being arrested for, they didn't say for resisting. They said you're being arrested for theft. That's what the cops said. Now, do you think I heard them mention Nordstrom's. Do you think they were in Nordstrom's during this? Because you might have just unintentionally answered another question I have, which is, it doesn't look like the usual situation where there's enough to go on to think she stole something, right? If you put something in your pocket before you get to the cash register, that's not generally considered evidence of shoplifting, is it?
No, it is. It is. If you conceal it if you conceal it on your person, pockets, purse, that's shoplifting, even if you don't get to the registers.
Yeah, I've watched a couple of videos on this, Jeff, in the past, and some states you have to bypass the point of sale, you know, the register. And once you do that, then that now triggers the shoplifting charge. But other states like Connecticut, I think it's just the concealing of the merchandise can raise to the level of a shoplift.
You agree with that, George? It's a state-by-state thing? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and we don't know what state this happened in.
Did you say her husband is a police officer?
Well, you see, it says right at the top, it says that, but there was no discussion that we see in the video of that, so no. I don't know.
I will say, I thought that both police officers were quite professional in the way they handled the situation.
They were.
Yeah.
You mean the in the store or outside?
Inside and outside. I thought they did a very, very.
Well, we don't even know that they are police officers inside, right? Isn't that our position? We don't know. We thought they might be.
Well, I got the impression the female was certainly a police officer.
No, but when they first approached her, I thought we were saying that could have been security guards, and then the cops showed up. Now the other thing, yeah.
I'm sorry, it could have been, but once the female police officer arrived, then that's it.
Right. So one explanation is what you gentlemen said, which is that in whatever state they are, just concealing something in your pocket is considered evidence of shoplifting. But another thing that occurred to me while we were talking is maybe she shoplifted something in another store previously and they followed her in.
Could be.
In other words, that the point we saw wasn't the initial thing that got their attention.
Yeah. Well, the story is sort of incomplete because I never heard her make mention of her husband being a police officer.
Yeah, I know.
And I never saw them remove any merchandise from the carriage or her jacket that would indicate that she had stolen something. I would really want to see exactly how much and what the items were that were stolen.
To me, it looked like something very small, like a ring case, a case that a ring or jewelry goes in.
But they usually have those behind a case, don't they?
Sure.
Well, it could be anything. Huh?
Jeff, I will tell you something that I learned recently, more so at the retail department stores. You wouldn't find this at a Nordstrom, but the places that have the self-checkouts like Targets and Walmart, people were shoplifters were buying, I guess they're little packets of that you would add to your water. So like flavored powders, and they're very small and obviously very cheap. And so what they were doing is palming that and taking their expensive items, swiping their hand over the reader so it would come up with like a 27-cent purchase. And then, a pair of shoes, and then, a jacket, and then, gloves and this and that. And everything is coming through at 27 cents. But, it makes the noise that lights up the register.
Yeah, I get it.
And then they put it in the bag and off they go. And eventually the security started to, look for that because I think they can actually read the purchases being made in real time from the security office. So once they see that 27-cent item come through 4 or 5 times, they're onto it.
Yeah, I would think that's a giveaway. So Lonesome Fugitive makes a good point. I'm aware of this because I used to live in California. It's basically if it's under $950, you can just take it. I mean, for all intents and purposes, that's the way it's handled in California. And the shoplifters know this. So, and I've seen people shoplift in front of me so many times when I'm in a store. And I'm only in a store for a few minutes, of course. I can't imagine the people who work there, how much they see it. It's unbelievable. So I'm really curious what state this is in. Because in California, where I lived, basically shoplifters could just get away with it. It would be considered very bad PR to have the sort of heavy-handed approach that we just saw. I mean, we saw them actually apprehend her and drag them off to jail. In California, they wouldn't even cite anybody for doing it.
Yeah, I didn't get the impression that was a California law enforcement agency.
What's the most conservative state as far as law enforcement?
Florida's pretty. I mean, I think Florida is probably one of the tougher states from what I've seen.
Yeah. Now, you said it's based on the value of the property being stolen as far as whether or not somebody is brought to jail. But is that sort of a policy? Or I would imagine officers have some discretion, right?
Not if it goes over a certain threshold. Once it goes, and George, correct me if I'm wrong, but once it's elevated to a felony larceny, you're not writing up that person with a misdemeanor citation, obviously, because it's a felony. That's a custodial arrest every time.
That's probably true. I have no reason to.
Oh, wow. That surprises me. I would have thought it's based on whether or not they think the person's going to flee, whether or not they've actually identified them, run a check on them, and so forth and so on. But as long as they know who they are. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm sure you're right. I'm just saying that I don't think that's really all that logical to make it on that basis, because no matter how much the property was worth that she had in her pocket or whatever, I don't think that has anything to do with whether or not she's going to show up in court or who she is or anything like that.
Sure. Yeah. But Jeff, the idea of bringing them in is to be fingerprinted and photographed, and they may release the person without any bond. It's not that they're not going to show up, but the severity of the charge being a felony, there's the possibility, the remote possibility that the person could go to prison, especially if they have a horrible record. So you have the responsibility to take them into the station at that point for fingerprints and photographs.
All right. I wish we had more information on, exactly what she's took and what state, but that's all we can go by. All right. Let's look at another one. Here is a cop being a bit of a hero. I have a feeling Greg has been a hero on a couple of occasions. Let's take a look at the list.
We've gotten like 4 or 5 calls of the male sitting on the railing with his legs over his jeans and a brown jacket with white hair.
It turns out it was an older woman sitting on the railing of the Merry Meeting Bridge between Brunswick and Topsham in early October. Officer Lucas Sherlin pulled up to the scene, his dash camera recording what happened next.
And I noticed that she looked down back towards the river and then like scooches closer to the edge. And it was just gut reaction. I just reached out, grabbed her, and pulled her over the railing back to the sidewalk.
The woman went to the hospital for further evaluation. She told Officer Sherlin she went to the hospital earlier in the day and asked for help.
I hate saying it, but, we bring them to the emergency room and it's like a revolving door and they're back out on the street. It could be, an hour or 2 later, and then we could be dealing with them again.
Sherlin says more needs to be done, more inpatient beds to handle the cases that continue to increase.
We deal with mental health calls on a daily basis, multiple times a day.
This is not the first incident on this bridge of someone in the throes of a mental health crisis. In January of this year.
All right, I guess we saw enough of that. Ever stop somebody from committing suicide or dealing with any sort of mental health situation?
I would love to be able to say that I did, but I never did.
Well, it's been a number of years since you were a cop, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot more mentally ill people on the streets nowadays than when you were a cop.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
You got to think of it from the cop's perspective, like in terms of like, why do police officers go into the profession? And I just wonder what goes through people's minds nowadays. They've got to know a big part of their job is going to be dealing with homeless people, mental illness, things and so forth. It's not quite the same type of work as crime fighting in the traditional sense, is it?
There's certainly a larger population of that category of people that are technically not criminal, but they're doing something that requires police involvement.
Also, the fire department, because the fire department is who handles medical issues. So when I was living in Los Angeles and then Long Beach, I'd be walking around all the time, and I'd see, the police come out, the fire department coming out. And I haven't heard anybody make this point, but it's got to have a negative impact on how they provide services to the population in general.
Well,
it must have happened more than once that the fire department was over somewhere dealing with a homeless person, and then there's a fire somewhere else, and now they're farther away, and it takes them longer to get there than they otherwise would have. Same thing with a crime situation, wouldn't you think?
Sure. Oh yeah, no, it's a big drain on resources. Absolutely, Jeff. I will give you one story that now kind of comes to mind, but I was not the primary on this. It was related to me. We had a gentleman in Branford, and I still remember his name. I'll just say his first name, Eddie. I won't give his last name. He was a unique fellow. He had a Charlie Manson swastika tattooed in the middle of his between his eyes, his eyebrows. And
that's reasonable suspicion right there, by the way.
And he was heavily tattooed, and he was a menacing-looking fellow, although actually he really wasn't. But I mean, he was, and he was an aggressive panhandler, amongst other things. I think he had some substance abuse issues. He was an alcoholic, and he was intimidating if you didn't know what to make of him. And what he used to do he would feign some sort of a overdose reaction on a sidewalk, and the ambulance would be dispatched, and he would get a ambulance trip to Yale New Haven Hospital because he wanted to go back to New Haven where he could panhandle on the green.
He'd use it as a taxi.
So as soon as he would get there, he would sit up and say, "I'm discharging myself," and walk out. And he would panhandle for a day or two, and then he'd want to go back to Branford. I'm not sure how he would make his way back to Branford, but eventually he would. And then once he wanted to, engage in his whatever, he would feign another episode. And so he did this one day on a Sunday morning, and a family was coming home from church, and as he sees him pulling in the driveway, he collapses on their lawn and goes into his act. And Dorrance Johnson, who was a colleague of mine, pulls up, and he used to also work on the ambulance, so he knew him pretty well. And he walks up and straddles him and just starts slapping him across the face. and of course the family is horrified because they think he's in some sort of medical distress. And all he did was scramble to his feet and rub his face and say, I'm sorry, Dorrance, I'll leave," and then just walk off. So I always enjoyed that story because he just didn't know who was going to show up on any given day, and he picked the wrong guy that day.
So roughly speaking, how many times did he fake it, would you say, to your knowledge?
Oh, dozens.
Really? I mean, that to me would be evidence of some sort of a crime, right? I don't know off the top of my head what. It would be theft of services or something like that.
False emergency.
Yeah.
Falsely calling 911 or having a false emergency.
Well, he didn't call 911.
Oh, somebody else would call.
You would always make sure it was.
Oh, well, he has a defense then. He goes, whatever, they want to give me a ride. George, you're the prosecutor. Greg gives you the evidence there. Could you figure out a way to prosecute the guy?
No, I'd nolly it.
Exactly.
What's that?
I would nolly it. That means you're not going to prosecute it.
Say the word again.
Nolly, N-O-L-L-E. Nolli prosequi is the full Latin phrase, but in Connecticut we just use nolly.
Oh, okay.
It just
Greg sounds like he knows the term. I don't know.
Dismissal, basically, is what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, nolly it. We learned something here.
That was a big word in GA 14 in Hartford.
Oh yeah, too big a word, unfortunately.
Yeah, really.
All right, we have one more in our Has It Happened to Greg segment, and this video was actually sent to me by Greg Dillon, the FBI whistleblower himself. Let's take a look at it.
The defendant not guilty of felonious assault.
In a silent courtroom, an Ohio jury found police officer Connor Grubb not guilty in the shooting death of 21-year-old Takia Young. Moments later, the verdict made Young's grandmother hysterical.
Grubb, you're...
2 years ago in Blendon Township, Ohio, Young, a few months pregnant, was suspected of shoplifting alcohol at a nearby grocery store.
Out of the car.
For what?
Out of the car.
For what?
They said, "You stole stuff, do not leave."
Officer Grubb and another officer ordered Young out of the car. She refused, put the vehicle in gear, and slowly accelerated forward. Grubb fired once at close range, hitting her in the chest. Young and her baby did not survive. Mark Collins is Grubb's attorney.
A car was used towards a Blendon Township police officer, and he had to react.
Sean Walton represents the Young family. He says today's verdict was not justice.
Just understanding how hard it is to convict a police officer in this country. The burden is high for murder already. It's even higher when an officer is involved.
Grubb did not speak in court. He was facing up to life in prison if convicted. Meg Oliver, CBS News, New York.
Meg Oliver. Thank you, Meg Oliver. All right, so first of all, unlike the other shoplifter, this woman was apprehended out in the parking lot. So clearly that was shoplifting if she had the unpaid booze on her then, as opposed to while in the store. And I wish we saw a little bit more of the video footage. Don't hate me, Greg. I think I might have to side with the victim's family on this one. The argument that was made briefly in the report we just saw was, well, the car was coming at him, so it was sort of self-defense. But shooting a bullet through the windshield doesn't really stop the car.
Well, he was in front. He was in front of the windshield, wasn't he? He was on the hood.
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't know. I think he had his hand on the hood. I don't think he was on the hood. I don't think.
But he was in front of the car, wasn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we can look at it again. So don't hate me. You're the cop. I'm sure. Well, I'm not sure, but I'm guessing you might be siding with the cop on this. I'm certainly not endorsing driving into a cop or any human. But what about my point that shooting the gun isn't really the best reaction in that situation? What do you think?
Let me just watch.
See if we get to that point where, yeah.
Now, he is in front of the car, and I have to ask, why didn't he move to the side?
Yeah.
But he was in front of the car. She started to accelerate, and I think that would be a justifiable shooting in that circumstance.
See, I'm conflicted, Jeff, because I don't think his tactics are sound.
Yeah.
To take your patrol car and block the car in, effective. To try to stand in front of a car and think that's going to stop it, ineffective. The officer, unfortunately, has decided to put himself in a position of a precarious position, maybe unnecessarily.
Yeah. Over shoplifting.
Correct. Yeah. But the other thing is,
maybe go to the step to the side and shoot at her tires. How about that?
Well, you're trained not to try to shoot at tires.
Oh, you're not?
No.
Despite all the movies.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's not effective? Is that the reason?
Well, the bullet can bounce off the tire and hit you or somebody else. And even if it does penetrate the tire, which oftentimes it will, the car can still be driven for miles with a one flat tire. So that's never taught in any police academy that I'm aware of. But we always look at the end result of these things. The final, the culmination of the event, and we sort of discount the fact that I believe she was 7 months pregnant, so she's not stealing to feed her family; she's stealing alcohol, and
it's considered very healthy too to drink booze while you're pregnant, right?
Yeah, right. And so then, when you have uniformed police officers that are telling you to turn off the car and you have made a conscious decision to drive into a police officer, the expected consequence is going to be poor, right?
Yeah, but the other thing is, it's not like driving into the cop is the first thought, meaning that she's really trying to get away. It's not like, she wants, let me mow down these people or whatever.
Well, I know, but that's a little consolation if you end up being paralyzed from the neck down because a car drove over you.
Well, that's true. That's true. But intent means something, right? As opposed to nothing.
Well, if you put your foot on you put the car in drive and you put your foot on the gas, your intent is to move that car in a direction that obviously is going to either kill or maim somebody.
Well, not if you're going 3 miles per hour.
True.
But the police officer doesn't know that at the time. He just sees it coming at him. Doesn't know if it's going to accelerate.
If he floors it, then what's his reaction time going to be?
That's true. All right. So you say close call, but let's go with the acquittal. That's the right decision.
He could have handled, as Greg said, he could have handled it better. He could have stepped aside. But I don't not guilty on that.
All right.
Concur.
All right. While we have a federal prosecutor here, let's get to the two big cases in Trump land, James Comey and Letitia James. Their cases have been dismissed. This is a procedural issue. The merits of the case, whether or not they violated the law, was not at issue as it regards this decision. George, can you explain for us what happened here?
Well, the judge dismissed it based on the prosecutor being improperly appointed. what's her name? Halligan, I think it is. Leslie Halligan.
Yeah, Lindsay Halligan.
Lindsay Halligan. She was. He had appointed some. The law is that you can fill an appointment with a temporary U.S. attorney for 120 days, and then after that, it's supposed to be up to the judges. And what they did is what Trump or what Bondi did is after the 120 days expired for, I think it was Eric Siebert's appointment, she went and appointed this Halligan. And so, I think statutorily, the judge was correct that it was an illegal appointment. I don't think you can just take this a step a lot farther. Can they keep doing the 120 game forever and ever and ever, just keep playing the game? I don't think they could. So statutorily, I think she was right. In the end, though, I think it's meaningless because it could be refiled.
George, let me ask you a question. Do you think that Pam Bondi is in over her head to jeopardize a case of this significance with an appointment that was not going to withstand judicial scrutiny?
Yeah, I mean, in this case, I like Pam Bondi and what she's been doing, but I think that in this case, it was a mistake to do that, and she should have found some other way. All you have to do is it would be perfectly valid if an assistant U.S. attorney, as I was, could sign off on the indictment. She didn't have to appoint someone as an interim U.S. attorney. It could have just been any line AUSA in the office who could sign off on the indictment. So I don't know why she went a more complicated route.
That is a very smart question. Do you think? I mean, she had the one that she had done that was kosher. That was the temporary attorney didn't want to prosecute. I guess refused to prosecute. Right. Do you think that maybe nobody was willing to do it? Could that be?
I doubt it, especially in the case of Letitia James, because that, in my opinion, is a solid case. They got the documents. That was a headshot, in my opinion. I don't know why the interim U.S. attorney would say insufficient evidence on that. It just baffles me that that would be the case. There could be other reasons why you might want to decline a prosecution, but not for insufficient evidence, which is what he went on record as saying.
George, I had a question. Maybe it's a bad analogy, but Letitia James sort of spiking the football over this decision. I mean, is it almost not the equivalent of somebody having a hung jury verdict and celebrating it, even though when they polled the jury, it was, 11 guilty and one not guilty on a holdout, and you somehow think that you beat the system, even though all you've done is delay it?
Right. I mean, I think she was, but that's Letitia James. She's that kind of a person who is going to seize any opportunity she can to mitigate blame on herself or deflect blame from herself. She's just that type of person. It's going to be a short-won victory for James and Comey because they can refile the charges. They have 6 months actually to refile it. Assuming there's no appeal, they could do that. They could get a line AUSA to sign off on it. I don't see any problem with refiling it.
Do they have to wait for the appeal process to run its course before they can refile, or can they do it even before that?
They could do it right now because they don't have to take an appeal on it. So they could just say we're going to forego.
They are appealing it, I believe.
It seems like they are. They haven't filed the formal motion yet, but there's a lot of procedural steps that you have to take a government appeal. It has to go to the Solicitor General, blah blah blah. There's a lot of steps in it, and it usually.
Pam Bondi has been talking like that's the plan to appeal.
Well, she is the Attorney General, and she could override the Solicitor General in that regard.
Now, you say there's a relatively strong case against James, but what about Comey? He's got some other arguments besides the one that got it dismissed. He said there was no properly filed indictment. The indictment fails to state a crime, and the prosecution is unconstitutionally vindictive and selective. Do you think any of those defenses are strong?
The selective prosecution seems to me have the most traction, but that is very difficult to prove. But that seems to be his strongest argument, that there was selective prosecution, because there was. Now, I don't know what the remedy is. I guess you dismiss it, but I'm not sure of all the the analysis that you go through. Is there harmless error, stuff like that?
The other thing is he didn't really lie is part of his argument, because of the way Cruz, this is about lying to Congress, and based on the way Cruz asked the question, I don't have it in front of me. Based on the way he asked the question, he didn't actually tell a lie. If you attach the meaning that they're attaching to what Cruz said, he answered it truthfully.
Well, that is a problem. I mean, and in fact, these kind of cases, perjury cases, are very, very difficult to prove, because there are a lot of outs that a defendant has. I didn't intend that. I didn't mean it. It was ambiguous. And so there are a lot of outs. Perjury is a very, very difficult charge to prove.
Yeah. I mean, my sentiment is I kind of would like to see Comey, get it. But the fairness in me says he doesn't really seem like he did all that much.
Also, the context of this coming in a congressional hearing, Cruz was not going to try and lock him into it. If this was a trial and I had a defendant on the stand or a witness on the stand that I thought was lying, I would box them in so that there's no way out. There's no way they could wiggle out on an ambiguity. You box them in solid. That wasn't Cruz's point when he was questioning him. It was completely different. It just wasn't. So it's not surprising that there would be some defenses to this, given the context of where the alleged false statement appeared.
I do have a question. I'm sorry, Jeff.
No, go ahead.
The question that how solid a case can be made about the perjury, but what was the deal with disclosing classified documents to his buddy who was outside of federal employment to be leaked to the newspaper? Was the problem with that is that the statute of limitations had run on that? Is that what the issue was?
I'm not familiar. I don't know, Greg.
Okay.
I know what Greg is talking about, but I don't know the answer to the question.
Well, he had taken notes of my understanding is he had taken notes, which are considered, at this point, property of the FBI during the course of his interactions with Trump, and then had passed them on to a buddy of his who was not in federal employment, with the purpose of it being leaked to the New York Times. So I understood that he was in jeopardy of having passed along classified information illegally, and I was never quite sure why, if it was a statute of limitations issue that it triggered, or if they just felt it was too tenuous a case to make.
When did that occur? Which occurred first, the perjury or the releasing? I think the releasing of classified information probably occurred first.
Yeah, because that was, I think, during Trump's first term. So I'm wondering if there's a statute of limitations issue that was triggered.
Classified information usually has a fairly long one. 5 years is the normal statute of limitations, but I would think anything classified or espionage related would have no limitations period or a very long one. But I'm not familiar with that statute.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So would it be safe to say that Ted Cruz might be overrated? I mean, he has this reputation for being a brilliant constitutional scholar, but he flubbed the question. He didn't really nail Comey.
Well, in fairness to him, I mean, he is a brilliant constitutional lawyer. He worked for Antonin Scalia, so that gives you his bona fides as a constitutional scholar. But he's not a litigator. He wasn't trying to try this case. He was asking legislative questions to Comey, trying to get an answer for that. So it was not in his.
Yeah, it's a different skill.
Yeah, to box him in on that.
But Jeff, also in his defense, I don't think he was convinced maybe at the time that he was really onto something. I think he was. Only later on now do we realize how deceptive Clapper and Comey and Brennan were. Had he had that information at that time, I think he probably would have focused more on trying to take away his escape routes and make him stick to a straight answer. But back then, I don't think that was the case.
Yeah, good point. All right, well, that should wrap it up for tonight, I guess. You gentlemen have any plans for Thanksgiving? Traditional Thanksgiving or non-traditional, or no plans?
Eating like a pig.
Yeah, really.
What'd you say, Greg?
Eating like a pig. That's my game plan.
Eating like a pig. Same with you, George?
You look like a pig watching football games. Packers are playing the Cowboys or the Lions.
Yeah.
They're playing. Okay. I think they're playing the Lions.
Yeah, that's usually the traditional game.
And I trust you'll be supporting the "We Ain't Buying It" campaign. That
yeah, that's stupid.
George, how many times has the Green Bay beat the Lions so far?
This season? I think this is the first. Ever
history?
Oh, got to be a lot.
107.
Is it 107?
I saw it on Facebook. It's got to be true. I saw it on Facebook.
Out of how many appearances? How many games?
Oh, I don't remember that part, but they said it was the biggest single statistic as far as winning games against another team in NFL history. Because of course they're probably like some of the original teams of the Lions and the Packers. So.
All right, okay. I love a federal prosecutor who wears a football jersey. I mean, that's.
I'll come with a suit.
But would you have the guts to show up in court in a football jersey?
Not if I'm a prosecutor, no.
Greg and I were witness. Speaking of how you dress in court, Greg and I don't think this was on the show. I think we were talking about this privately, or maybe it was on the show. Judges don't like you to wear hats. That's considered disrespectful.
I never wore a hat. I've never seen anyone wearing a hat.
But are you aware of what I'm saying? That they don't like it, and they tell you to.
In the gallery, George. George, in the gallery.
Oh, in the gallery. I don't think I've ever seen anyone, but I would think the judges would be upset with that, Jeff. So you got to lose the cap if you're ever in the hat if you're ever in.
But do they really have the authority?
Sure. Absolutely. In their court, they could pretty much do anything.
Do anything. Oh God.
See, I told you, Jeff, that's their castle.
What's the word? A bootlicker is somebody who's very subservient to cops. What's the word if you are to judges? A robe licker?
Judges have a lot of power in their courtrooms.
A gavel kisser.
Gavel kisser. All right. It doesn't seem right to me. All right, guys. Happy Thanksgiving. Don't forget to pass the cranberry sauce. And remember, we ain't buying it.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
thank you, gentlemen. It's been great. Thanks for having me on.
Good seeing you, George.
Thank you.